The past conflict in the north of the country between the Uganda People's Defence Forces (UPDF) and the Lord's Resistance Army the LRA decimated the economy, retarded the development of affected areas, and led to numerous gross human rights violations.
Journalism gives help to raise active voice on others when they are doing that particular job. And the role of journalism is that to raise up and bring that narratives on the ground where the societies will have ultimately peace and respect for human rights. Journalism is not to just go and only report man bites a dog. It's attractive for some people to sell. But journalism, it means you have to work as a fourth estate to work a constructive idea where society have moved. Conflict have lasting devastating effect. Not only the societies under which that conflict is married within, but the entire national framework. If one of us is one time is at conflict and is in suffrage, all of us as humans, we are also suffering. Now this concept even have been taken out of national things and have been taken at Pan-African level. Ugandans, as you know that now, they are foremost runners of defense, of recovery, of other peace in this continent, like Somalia, you name it, Burundi, Uganda. So Ugandan journalism have to also go beyond that and try to raise active voice in help overcoming conflict.
In the 7 years since the signing of hostilities agreement, many of those displaced persons have returned to their homes, and a rehabilitation and redevelopment program is underway. Media needs to communicate with the governments, NGOs, human rights activists, and the public the critical discourse of human rights and the violations. Maybe a paradigm shift is required to look at media communication as community interaction rather than mass communication. Such a shift would then justify the sacred role that media has been called upon to play. If the media does not take up the role of enabling protection of human rights of the citizens, then it would become an accomplice to the violation of human rights.
Freedom of expression is core pillar of right to peaceful protest, because others of assembly and association cannot be even exercised without active expression workers who are defending that space for societies to exercise peace and tranquility. It has been provided by your own constitution. It has been provided by the international and regional instrument for protection of human rights, to which Ugandan government is a signatory. African Charter on Human and People's Rights, UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19 provides the core within which all other laws, either soft or hard laws, have been driven on. So it's a fundamental that workers exercise, even in a situation of conflict, journalists have to go about and do their daily work.
Since northern Uganda is recovering from the war, the possibility of rights violation remains much higher compared to other regions. The media plays an enormously important role in the protection of human rights. They expose human rights violations and serve as a medium for different voices to be heard.
Human rights, it's our collective responsibilities. All the action that we are doing is our collective responsibility. And what we need also to highlight is that journalists are the first power. So their voice is well heard. So they have to be cautious in raising some issues, sensitive issues. But they need more to inform, very well informed and well educated population. They have to follow the deontology of journalism, first of all, and they need to learn more about mechanism protecting journalists. They need more to be involved in other networks that they can have some trainings in journalism, some trainings in transitional justice, trainings in media coverage, share experience, best practice with other journalists, in conflict areas, so they can come up with a fresh idea and then another dynamic of, driving their newspapers or their information. That's most important. And they have also to learn how to, to take the government or each stakeholder accountable by, approaching them, each party, and being fair and impartial.
Journalism in northern Uganda will thrive when editors and reporters make choices of what stories to report and how to report them, which create opportunities for society at large to consider and to value non-violent responses to conflict. Reporting should thus use conflict analysis and transformation to update the concepts of balance, fairness, and accuracy in reporting.
You don't need, as a media, as a journalist, to put in your, in your newspaper or, I don't know, on TV, some kind of, violent action or some kind of violent words in your report. It can harm victims. It can harm other people. So it's so difficult. In terms of, this context, you need to see double approach. The victims and other people. So you need to reconcile them all together. And then, they cannot be in a way that they are fighting forever.
The approach to journalism in northern Uganda should therefore constitute a new roadmap tracing the connections between journalists, their sources, the stories they cover, and the consequences of their reporting. The ethics of journalistic intervention. It applies an awareness of non-violence and creativity to the practical job of everyday reporting.
We are talking here about transitional justice since we are talking about reconciliation. When we are talking about transitional justice, we have to look at women victims. We have to look at male victims. We have to look at child victims of those wars. We have to take into account that they seek justice. And in the process of reconciliation, we need now all together to come with a voice of reconciliating, raise awareness, talk about transitional justice. They need that. They need another human rights education. They need to educate people. Tolerance, we need it. So that can bring us, can add us a value to, our living together. Otherwise, we'll be still fighting. And then, as media, we need to put back our ego. Don't be non-partisan. Not saying that I belong to this tribe, I belong to this clan, I belong to this. I have to report in this line. You have just to be transparent. As the work of journalists is being transparent.
Information communication technology, commonly referred to as ICT, can be described as technologies used to gather, share, and disseminate information using computers and computer networks. Policies are typically guiding principles designed to influence decisions or actions within organizations, governments, groups, or individuals. ICT policy can be national, regional, or international, covering telecommunications, media, TV and radio, and the internet. The use of information and communication technology in media and human rights is important.
Most of these tools avail a vehicle in which people can dialogue, in which people can access information, in which people can interact. So I believe really in getting this peace and eventually sustaining it, it is through dialogue. And these are vehicles. You talk about Twitter, you talk about internet facilities. You talk about training in actual use of these tools. There are very many people out there in northern Uganda who feel they should engage in this debate in reconstruction and rehabilitation of the North, but they cannot, you know. And if these facilities are availed, and not only being availed, but even training to use them is extended to these people, then I think in a way it will contribute to push the dialogue.
The media has played a crucial role in imparting both knowledge and information in relation to land and other post-construction issues. It is important to evaluate the drivers of conflict and to report in a balanced manner.
Media needs to do a lot more investigative journalism. The media needs to focus on an issue or a conflict, for example, and be able to unearth or to share the dimensions this conflict is taking. Because just reporting sometimes on the occurrence without interrogating the drivers of that conflict, I think sometimes is not helpful. What was the nature of this conflict? What were the drivers of this conflict? So issues around trend are important because they help both the policymaker and the advocacy or the activists to identify the issues that need to be reformed or the issues that need to be tackled, especially with the question around early warning.
It is important in the context of human rights to view the media as partners, not adversaries. The media needs to focus on key initiatives taken by both government and non-state actors that support youth and women.
I think they are viewed more as adversaries. Mainly, I think when they seem to be stepping on people's toes, or when they're reporting corruption in relation to post-conflict societies or rehabilitation programs. I mean, we've had media reporting on mismanagement around NUSAF programs, mismanagement around PRDP and stuff. So I think many times in that light, sometimes they are seen as adversaries. But I think what the media needs to also continue to do is to report on some of the positive things happening